There's something mentioned in the Satipatthana Sutta that is quite difficult to understand, and I think because of that it's often missed out and not mentioned by contemporary teachers. I've certainly struggled to make sense of it, but it's there in every passage, and in essence it goes something like this, and this is just my distilled version of it. Basically the Buddha is saying, mindfully breathing, and that is including internal breath and external breath, establishing attention at the center of the chest. We contemplate the body both internally and externally as we contemplate the rupa, or the form, both internally and externally. Now, in the process of contemplating the body internally, I'd like to say, in addition to what I said in the previous reflections on it, that there is an increasing sense of solidity that begins to grow as we begin to inhabit the body more. That is, we are living in a less abstracted space and we feel the body with more solidity, we feel the body with more concreteness. So when we stand, we feel it from head to toe. When we sit, we feel the spine erect and attention drops down the front line of the body, down into the root of the body and through the legs into the floor. We start to get this much more strong sense of solidity. Now, we can understand the reference to contemplating the inside of the body, but what could it possibly mean when they say extending that contemplation to outside of the body? So we're dealing here with rupa, with physicality, with solidity. And my sense of it is that as we do begin to inhabit the body starts to become an instrument of seeing. It starts to intuit, it starts to sense with every cell. So when we look at a piece of wood, we begin to sense the woodiness of the wood, not just through the eye socket's tunnel vision, but actually the impression of the woodiness of that rupa is experienced within this rupa of the body. So we start to sense, you could say, the grain of the wood can be felt throughout the entirety of the body. This is an unusual sensation for people who are unfamiliar with it, but I really think that this is where the teaching is taking us, and the consideration of the external is just as key as the consideration of the internal. When the rupa is fully inhabited, there's a searing clarity to the mind. The mind starts to really become unmoving, and the body starts to become like an antennae or sea anemone that is sensing out into the physical world itself. So when we look at a metal handrail, we sense the metalness of the metal. When we look at the concrete path or the gravel path, we can sense the texture of the stone. It's almost as if we flow into the stone and the stone flows into us. The rupa starts to become known both internally and externally, literally. Not many folk are mentioning this for some reason. So then how does it go by extension? How do we then get into the Vedana? Once the Vedana starts to be more inhabited, and it's not a clear point of demarcation, all of this blends one into the other in the way colours of a rainbow seem to blend one into the other. At a certain point, the Vedana starts to become increasingly apparent. While the Vedana internally is, as we've discussed, is more the emotional tonality, the atmosphere of the sensations, the electricity of the energy body, the tingling current of aliveness that we can sense on the inside. But again, a searing clarity is established if we are actually doing this, not from the head down, but with the totality of the body that includes the head. The body becomes solid, so there's no sense of separation between one's head and the toes. I mean, if you really shut your eyes and feel the body as a singularity, you can't see experientially any distance between the head or the toes. So the whole body then becomes vibrant, and the texture of a stone, the individual vibration, you could say, of a stone, the vibration, the quality of aliveness that you start to be able to sense in what's commonly perceived to be just an inanimate object starts to awaken. So you look at a piece of wood and you can feel the texture of the grain as a kind of harmony that moves through you. It's almost as if the grain and the movement of the grain enters into you and you enter into it. So there is a Vedana, there is a sensation. You look at a bird or an animal and you feel the spirit somehow of the bird or the animal, and the qualities of the fur, the sounds become sensational. It is a sensational experience. So there is sensation both inside and outside when we are fully in the body as a sensing organism. We use the body as a window through which we look and sense out into the world. So then what happens when the citta starts to awaken internally? Well, we've discussed that it's the awakening of immeasurability, radiance, measurability in the sense of compassion, sympathetic joy, equanimity. These are some of these sort of immeasurable qualities that begin to emerge. Fundamentally, a real sense of deep, unmoving aliveness. And it's not a stasis that separates from that which moves. Rather, it's a point of absolute potential out of which things that move emerge. So contemplating the citta internally is having one's attention at the center of the chest and beginning to feel the chest make a connection with divinity fundamentally, and being met by the divinity that pervades the universal space, and a communion of giving and receiving starts to awaken, where the human heart feels a devotional connection, and a blessing of grace starts to pour into the human heart. But how does this emerge then externally? Well, externally, when we have groundedness, real groundedness through the body, through sensations, into this luminosity of mind, is to begin to perceive the subtle substance of consciousness, the subtle substance of awareness emanating out of objects themselves. We start to see and experience directly a quality of inseparability, where our essential spirit is one and the same with the essential spirit even of a rock, or of an animal, or of a door handle, or of a cup, of anything. So all things start to become vibrant with a quality of aliveness, but they also in a sense become unknowable because the concreteness of them starts to break down. They become unidentifiable in the same way you could say as the flame in a fire becomes difficult to pinpoint, because which moment of the flame is the flame, which moment of the cup is the cup, which moment of the thing is the thing. So when we've established this sort of connection, the asavas really recede. That is the habit of letting attention flow out to fixate objects through naming them starts to cease, so we can no longer experience things through the lens of names. And in that openness we start to experience the objects in their totality. That is, we don't see objects based on point of view. That is the point of view of where our body and eyes happen to be situated. Yes, that's included, but we sense the entirety, the totality of the object. That's the outside, the inside, the rupa, the vedana, the citta, and then the wisdom mind starts to recognize the inseparability between subject and object. And so the story, the understanding of the who, that is the me, and the what, that is the thing, the story of the relationship between the me and the thing, the who and the what, all of that starts to unravel, and we enter into a completely new way of relating to the entirety of everything that's experienced in life.